my accent as Jack. He said something about, what kind of an Australian accent was that? And I was like, I don't know. Because I remember auditioning for the part with an Australian accent, and then when I went back in, they said, could you tone it down a little bit? And then it kind of went away. But in my heart, I was still very much.
Well, that's it, yeah. I mean, not only the director, but sometimes producers change, you get a different idea of what they want, which doesn't really make sense once you get going. And also, sometimes you sort of feel out the character those first 6 or 10 episodes, which isn't necessarily the best thing, but sometimes you sort of find it as you go along and then lock into something. But yeah, that can definitely, just gotta watch that, I think.
Yeah, the initial episodes of Yugioh, they had Yami and Yugi more similar to my natural voice. And then it became, let's make Yugi higher, and then it became, let's make Yami more commanding and authoritative sounding. So in the latter seasons, the difference between the two is really much bigger. And what, just to echo off of what Greg was saying, I get notes in the script, and in the subsequent seasons when they were finding that they were liking the more commanding version of Atem, they would say things like, okay, now Yami it up here, you know, and be like, okay. And then it sounded like he had anger issues.
There were times too when either it was a specific writer wasn't as familiar or whatever, but they would write Joey a lot smarter than he was supposed to be. And I'd have to go, yeah, I wouldn't say anti-establishmentarianism, that doesn't make sense. I wouldn't say that.
Not even with a Brooklyn accent? No?
I'm not going to do it.
This is a question towards Wayne. Can you do a mockery line as Michelangelo towards rap?
Can I do, I heard mockery and rap. What else?
Michelangelo to rap.
Do
a mocking line.
A mocking line as Mikey to rap?
Mikey!
It's been so long since I've done Michelangelo.
Come on.
Hey, rap! Swell driving, Speedo!
Shut it! I'm gonna come over there and bap ya!
How's that?
Ah, come on, right? Pretty priceless. I hope you were recording.
It's good to come back.
It's pretty incredible. These guys look a little shifty in the back. Let's keep an eye on them.
Security, doing
Security.
Latecomers do not tell the intermission, please. You're really ruining the performance.
Dan, what did you like more, the Egyptian gods or Exodia?
Oh, you know, that's so funny. The Egyptian gods are great. Actually, personally, I like Egyptology. I'm legend. But I really like saying Exodia obliterate. Really gratifying.
Ask for that one.
Yeah, come on, man. Give it to us.
Hang on.
Okay.
Hold on. I gotta get this.
Yeah,
Right.
make sure you're filming.
That's $100, by the way.
Boxes are
Yeah, remember that, buddy, when you put it up on YouTube. Actually, $1,000.
Exodia, obliterate!
Come on! Come on!
He wouldn't stop saying that in the car ride up here.
I know. Shut up, Dan. We get it.
Between Greg's reckless driving and you're screaming.
I didn't think I was screaming.
Right. I was pretty drunk on the drive up, so.
I sobered up in the last 5 minutes.
This one's to Wayne. How did you feel about the duel between Joey and Yugi?
How did you feel about the duel? Well, I think the series was kind of setting that up so it didn't really come out of the blue, like I knew it was going to happen. And the cool thing is that as the series progressed over time, and the cool thing again about 4Kids is that we got to meet each other and kind of have a rep company. I got to become friends with Dan outside of the booth, and so it was kind of, oh yeah, I'm bonding with this guy, and it fed the character's angst about having to battle his best friend. And so yeah, I was kind of like excited about it, and yet a little scared. I knew he was going to win. Much like life.
Dan wins.
Always.
Just a question. What was your opinions, directed at anyone, on 4Kids censoring Yu-Gi-Oh! Like, in particular with the...
This is why you need to get here on time, sir.
Oh, that's okay.
That's okay.
I mean, Dan sort of spoke to this, but basically, I think we all sort of understand the fans that really like the story that was coming from Japan, and you know, 4Kids definitely took some of the edgy stuff out of that, but they had to. I just would never get on the air. It just can't. And even if they wanted to, there's a standards and practices in the U.S. They're not going to allow it. You just won't get it on the air. And you can argue, as some of the fans have, that it broadened the audience then because it played to kids that would have never seen it otherwise. But I mean, I can appreciate that, and that's why a lot of people watch it in Japanese online, which you can do, you know. But 4Kids shouldn't be blamed for that, and they always sort of have been, but they can't do anything. They have to do that. They have no choice, you know. So, yeah, so if you wants to speak to that.
And just to add to that, they actually fight back against the broadcasters, especially when they think that the broadcasters are being overly restrictive. So they did the best that they could. And also, just because Konami's in charge, it doesn't mean that all of that editing is going to go away. We're still under the same broadcast standards and practices.
But what if they move to like Cartoon Network or cable channel? Because I know they're a bit more lenient.
It's a question of whether we can get a broadcast on those channels or not. And the CW is where its home is right now.
Yeah.
This one's directed towards Dan.
Yeah.
During the Yami and little Yuki 4-part episode where they duel, do you think it was unfair that Yami got all 3 Egyptian gods?
Do I think it was unclear?
Unfair.
Oh, unfair. Oh, it's hard to say. I mean, I like both those guys. So, how do you mean unfair? Do you think like it made it too easy for him, or?
He lost.
Well, I know. But
It made it too hard for him. There you go.
what did you think was unfair?
A little bit.
You're often in the position of just approaching it like when you're performing as, you know, how does it serve the story? And since I don't duel, I don't look at it as, well, you know, this is not a decent way to do this duel or to, you know, to play this round. Right? So I think it helped the story.
Oh, okay. So my question is for everyone, but in particular, like Ted Lewis and Wayne Grayson. How do you guys decide to put accents on your performances? Like in your case, British for Bakura and Australian for Jack.
I just throw stuff out there and see what's next. And whether they like it or not.
It's like jazz.
No, basically,
Usually in a breakdown, isn't it? Usually in a
yeah, it
breakdown.
is usually. If you know, any time that I've gone in, you know, whether it's Bakura who has a British accent or Jack Atlas who has a accent. Guess what it is? I don't know. But usually, from the first audition, they know, okay, this guy is, you know, he's from, you know, he's Bakura. They said, you know, he's a kid from the UK. He's, you know, moved to America from the UK and this, that, whatever. So can you give me the British accent or whatever? So it's usually right at the first audition. Sometimes, you know, there are times where they'll, you know, have you tweak it or try something new or what have you. But usually they know ahead of time when we go in, giving them, you know, what they've requested for the character.
Okay.
Occasionally, from a casting point of view, I know my current producer, for example, in the initial casting was fairly open if people wanted to try things. You know, I don't know if you watched Zexel, but the character of Astral and
You might.
There might be some people who
Astral, we read men and women. He was open.
I really wanted that part.
Sorry. And Bronx, you know, some people submitted an accent, some people didn't. One person did Chicago, one person did New York. Like, he was fairly open, and I appreciate that about him, that he's fairly open to suggestions. Of course, then it has to go past a whole bunch of other hurdles to get approval by other people too. But, yeah. Often it's in the breakdown though, right?
I have a request for Dan and a question for everyone. What is your favorite season of the original Yu-Gi-Oh? And can Dan please say the oath for Ra?
Oh gosh.
Oh, geez,
How does the oath for Ra go again?
Almighty protector of the sun and sky, I beg of thee, please heed my cry. Transform myself from
No, right, you gotta give it on.
Exodia!
If you were to write that down so I could read it,
Okay.
I would be happy to do that. What was that?
I like the first season best.
Oh, right.
Season.
Agreed.
Yeah, first season and last season, I think, for me.
Late fall.
Oh,
How many seasons were there?
5.
I mean, there were 5 seasons.
You were so on top of it.
Totally.
Alright, I'm just gonna ask Rayami. Do you think in the first season it was unfair that Tristan lost the only duel he was ever in?
That's Tristan.
Yes. I was very frustrated. I'd get the script and I'd be like, maybe today's the day. Maybe Tristan will finally get to duel. Did I duel? Was that in a dream? That was like in a dream. Wasn't it against 2 other people? I don't remember.
And then you got turned into a...
It doesn't feel like I ever dueled, that's all I can say.
Oh.
Yes.
He also lost to Taya.
Let's not talk about his losses. It's really a sore spot with me. But, no, I was just glad. Tristan was fun. He had awesome hair, so I was just glad to have an opportunity. You guys, I'm trying to talk. No, so yeah, I wish he had dueled more. But I got the chance to play Yusei, so I got to do plenty of shouting. I mean, dueling.
Yeah, just, you guys go on.
Preparing. I don't know, is anyone interested? I'm surprised this hasn't been asked yet, but anyone interested in voice acting? Getting into voice acting?
No. Oh, you mean now?
It depends on the day.
On the deal.
On the deal. I mean, because I think, I don't know, I've just gotten this question before, so I always tell people, I think it's very difficult to do if you're not in a major city, which is really New York or Los Angeles, or I guess maybe Chicago, but I think specifically anime, you really have to be in New York or LA, someone else can sort of speak to this. I also sort of feel, and I've always felt this about acting, is that you can't sort of halfway do it. If you're interested in doing it, you have to really go for it, because if you don't, you just won't get in. There's too many people that want to do it and want to try to do it. I think that voice acting should be taken seriously as any kind of acting, and for me, I always tell people if you're interested in being a voice actor, you should take acting class first, or as part of whatever. You know, if you have an opportunity where you live to take voice classes, obviously, but it's important to study to be an actor, because even in this stuff, you know, I studied acting in college, but I certainly utilized some of the stuff that we learned in school, you know, doing this. So that's what I say to people, and mostly the main thing is like, if you're going to do it, you got to really do it and commit and work hard, because
We're all actors who do voice work.
Right. There's just too many people in the business trying to do it, so.
I'm ready to lay this oath down, I think. You ready? Okay.
$1,000, buddy.
$1,000.
Yeah, my phone. I can't record it.
Great beast of the sky, please hear my cry. Transform thyself from orb of light and bring me victory in this fight. Envelop the desert with your glow and cast your rage upon my foe. Unlock your powers from deep within so that together we may win. Appear now in this shadow game as I call your name, Winged Dragon of Raw!
Go, Yugi!
Yeah.
You can do it!
Tim, calm down. You're always so
Can I have my phone?
My turret's gonna take me direction, okay.
You talk good.
One more time from the top,
And
man.
thanks for the phone, I appreciate that.
Really?
Yeah. This is for Dan and Wayne. I was wondering what part of the Awakening the Dragons arc you guys like to voice over the most?
Who's asking? I can't see where you are.
Could you repeat the question? I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
one more time.
During the Awakening the Dragons arc, the part with the Silvery Calcos, what was your favorite duel to voice?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I mean,
I just like anytime I have to say Orichalcos.
it's fun to say, yeah.
There you go. All right.
Yeah, sorry, that's not a great response. But...
Stole your thunder there?
No. I have nothing else to contribute. Sorry. I mean, it was cool arc.
That was a good story.
You know, whenever you're performing though, you always got to find something to like about what you're doing, so you can get into it with some conviction. You know, so.
Wait,
you know,
money wasn't good enough?
What's that?
Money wasn't good enough?
Money was terrible. No way was the money good enough. We drove here.
A young Republican voter. Yeah.
Okay.
This is just a general question, but was it tough to transition from one storyline to the next? Be it from Duelist Kingdom to Domino City, or escaping the satellite to whatever that
Right.
Lord's type was?
Right. What's tricky is, again, finding a way to invest in what you're saying, right? Having a purpose to speak these lines other than cash a check, right? So that's when you're really relying on the director, and Darren is an excellent director. You're welcome. And because as the actor, you're walking into the situation never having read the script before. So it's not like, for instance, if you were to audition for a play, you get to read the whole play. And you come in and you audition a scene or two, and then you spend weeks rehearsing your scenes and developing the play, and you have a lot of time to absorb the story and make choices. When you're doing this sort of work, you're coming in a very improvisational circumstance, right? So you have to be open to whatever you might need to do that day. And that's when you put your faith in the director to explain what you need to understand to get into the character, get the appropriate feeling across. And so that's the challenge anytime you walk into the booth. And some storylines you're going to enjoy more than others, based on the ideas behind it, based on what your character gets to do, you know? So,
I think what he said is really true, especially with this work. It's fast.
Yeah.
I mean, you move, you get in, you don't get the scripts before, you get them when you walk in the booth. You really got to make a choice, you really got to sell it, have conviction, and go, because you're not coming back to do it again, probably. So you really got to move, and you have to rely on the director to do. So it's important. I mean, I personally think it's a very weird skill, actually, because, you know, in most acting, is really the basis of most acting is working off the other person. And in this work, you go into the booth by yourself, and you're watching the screen, and you got your scripts, and you're hearing the beeps, and you got a general sense of what's going on, and then you're just hitting it. And to do that is really just certainly the acting part is important, and you have to bring that, but it's a very unique skill, and not everyone can do it.
On your first instincts.
Yeah.
Really rely on
Committing.
your first instincts. So some theater actors just don't transfer well to it because they have more of a process and they need to mull it over and stuff. Some are great.
We can do it all, there we go.
For those of us with a short attention span, this is actually a perfect line of work.
It's right, you don't have to memorize lines.
I can just read on the page, yes.
I'm definitely happy to see the arcs come and go.
Yeah.
There was like a country western sort of arc in 5Ds. I don't know if you guys remember.
Crush 'em.
Remember when we first started? It was only you say, everyone else disappeared, and I was sort of confused. I didn't know why we were doing it necessarily, but by the end, I was glad to have worked with a handful of brand new actors. No offense to.
Yeah, none taken.
And then I got to have the old actors back again. And I don't know, it was pleasant to start, to finish, and to go back to the regular.
Nice to have episodes where there was no dueling too. It was really rare, but like very exciting to get into the character.
Very rare.
Like learn a little bit about your character. I love that stuff.
There's a guy back.
This is for Dan. I'm not sure if this was asked or not, but I came late. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
The duel between Yugi and Yami, was that difficult for you? Like, what it was?
No, I was acknowledging that I understand your question. It was not difficult, it was fun, it was challenging, and because it was such an important element between those two characters. Not that you take any moment for granted, but you know, there are certain things that you really want to make sure are as excellent as they can possibly be. And you also want to make sure that you're, in that pursuit, you're bringing as much character and heart and conviction, and also hopefully some nuance, so that not everything is just yelling, you know. Being loud is not the same thing as being passionate, you know. So, and, and trying to understand what the dynamic is with those characters. And every time I would record Yugi first, and then do Yami, because Yami typically, I'm going lower, and it's easier for me to be higher and then go lower than the other way around. That's just technically. So I wouldn't say that it was difficult, but I would say the challenge was exciting.
How many hours do you think one of those episodes took for you?
Well,
6. 6 hours.
no, they
I
never.
wrote down 2 hours. 2 hours.
They never
7.
Between 2 and 100.
3 hours per.
Oh, like a typical main character might have about 4 hours of work for an episode.
Right.
So if it was 2 of them, I wonder if you were.
Yeah, I was probably close to 8 or 6. I don't know.
You went over. Well, you didn't go over.
Yeah. In general, they want you to do a good job, but they also want you to do it in an efficient period of time. Typically, that breaks down to doing maybe about 30 cues an hour. That's on the low end. If you get to know a character well, though, you can do as many as like 50 an hour. And at that point with the show, it was easy to be fluid. So, yeah.
Yeah, I have another question for Greg. Do you think you're going to beat Erica tonight?
I'm sorry.
What did you say?
Good
Do you
question.
think you're going to win?
Against me.
I know. Just thinking about it. I think I have a good shot. That's all I'll say.
He's playing the duel in his head 100 times.
He's practicing right now.
Just a couple more questions, I guess we have time for.
We have a duel to practice for.
Yeah,
that's right.
Get ready.
And the signing.
This question is for Dan and Wayne. If there were a duel between Yuma attacking between Yuma and Shock versus Yugi and Joey, who will win?
Well, I'm gonna win.
Yeah, probably. It is called Yugioh, not Joey-O.
So there were some episodes.
There were some episodes where it may as well be called
Very Joey. Yeah.
Very Joey. I think you would win, yes.
King of Games and all.
Oh, that Joey now.
So it's obvious that you guys do voice acting and you're very passionate about it. Have any of you ever done like live action, like on TV or like in a movie?
Greg?
I've done a very little bit lately. I was on an episode of The Good Wife, which maybe your parents watched that show. I played a lawyer, and then actually last night I was on the show called Blue Bloods, which is a cop show with
And your grandparents might watch.
And everyone's going, no.
No, doesn't ring bells.
But, I will say, years ago, we had the good fortune, Greg and Ted, Darren, and I, and Dan directed, we did a play that Greg actually spearheaded and produced, and we made us Broadway stars. No, it was a very fun experience. We had a great time, and we actually, some stuff did result from that professionally, I think.
Yeah, I've done a theater, that had a large theater background right when I get out of school. And then I did some stupid things in the soap opera here and there. Nothing amazing. I did a terrifically bad independent movie. It really was horrible. It's astoundingly bad. And then one that wasn't so bad. But I haven't been doing anything on camera for about 12 years.
Perhaps you've seen me in the movies. I go quite often.
Wait, Ted, what is your stage name? Ryan Gosling?
Perhaps you saw me in Drive, where my version was Drive Away.
I did one episode of the Chappelle Show, which was fun. Hanging out with Dave Chappelle for the day.
I think I saw that.
He kept asking where his cookies and weed were.
It's good to have those things together.
It's obvious with all the different generations of Yu-Gi-Oh! That you guys don't always get the chance to work together. With the latest movie that just came out, how did it feel to finally be able to work together again?
That was awesome.
It was great. Because the original series had been over for a while, right?
Long time.
And the other thing is that you got to, the thing that I struggled with sometimes with the series is there's so much dueling that you don't get a chance for the characters to just sort of talk to each other. There's a little bit more of that, and I just thought it was cool to have all three of them together at the same time, so.
And I hadn't done anything Yugi like for years before we got to that movie, and it was like visiting an old friend. It was like, oh, I remember this character. Well, that's true, that's true. So, yeah, that was fun.
Last question.
This one's for Ted Lewis. This is for a friend. This is for a friend of mine. I want to record it for him. Could you say in Jack's voice, "I summon the Red Dragon Archfiend"?
Just
I summon Red Dragon Archfiend!
Can you do it with French now? Is that
I summon Red Dragon Archfiend!
Southern, maybe?
I summon Red Dragon Archfiend!
Now Canadian German.
German?
French Southern.
Yeah.
Who was Toon Drag?
All right, sorry to cut it short, but as I said earlier, we have a scripted duel, or a live duel to prepare for. We do have another panel tomorrow, don't forget, and there'll be an autograph session later on today at 4:30. Is there a second one? At 6:30. Don't forget the donation.
Yeah, this is a benefit for Dan, so if you enjoyed it today, please
Donate.
your donation. Yes.
I deeply appreciate all of your help and compassion. Thank you.
What's the last one?
The live duel is between rounds 4 and 5. They just started